Was the latest Starship static fire successful? What's coming up next regarding booster number 1? Is SpaceX building the new Lunar mockup? I'll try to answer those and many other questions in this episode of Starship Updates. We'll start off with the SN11 test campaign. In the last episode we finished on aborted static fire. Back then I was wondering whether SpaceX will fly without another test or if they are waiting for the arrival of the new old generation Raptors. Turns out it was neither of those things. The workers at Boca Chica have fixed the engines. Back then they were Raptors with serial numbers 47, 52 and a mysterious underdodge. Then they've again tested the RCS thrusters. Next, Starship tried to fly away using its flaps, and finally we've had another static fire. Was it successful? Well, that's what we thought. Everything looked fine, the Raptor sounded, well, terrifying as always, but other than that, it looked like a perfect static fire. Turns out that one of the Raptor engines was damaged during the test, which we didn't know back then. That's why we were really surprised when on March 25th one of the engines was replaced with a recently arrived SN46. The swap out process was done really quickly and we were expecting another static fire. It turned out that SpaceX had even more ambitious plans than that. In the new road closure order found on the Cameron County website, we could read that SpaceX was planning to do a static fire and a test flight on the same day. And with that, the when SN11 hop began. On March 26th, everything looked promising. The road was closed and the pad was cleared. The weather wasn't looking too fantastic, but it was supposed to clear up. Then we've had a static fire. At first glance everything looked okay, but in my opinion something went wrong there. If you look closely, it appears as if something was dripping out after the engine shutdown. Normally, during the flight, trapped gases are normal after shutdown, but here it reminds me of one of SN8 static fires, where there was literally molten metal dripping from underneath the skirt. The flight was cancelled and we thought that it probably was because of the bad visibility that day, but later Elon tweeted that SN11 needs additional checkups, which isn't a good sign and it supports my theory that something went wrong. On the other hand, new TFRs appeared for March 29th, March 30th and March 31st. There is also a road closure scheduled for March 29th. So maybe after all we don't need an engine swap and a few minor repairs is all that is needed for a successful flight. I guess that we will find out on Monday. If you also can't wait for the flight, we've created an SN11 bingo on our Discord server. There is a special channel where you can vote and if you win you will get a special rank. The link to our server is in the description. Now let's check out the progress made regarding Super Heavy booster number 1. I've talked a bit about the BN1 in the previous episode, but now it's time to look closer at the first stage of Starship vehicle. Some time ago we were wondering what is the purpose of this big square cutout on the top of the high bay. Now we have the answer. It was a temporary solution to speed up the process of BN1 stacking. SpaceX used an upgraded version of a crane that is better known as Tankzilla or Bluto. The prototype stacking process itself went pretty smoothly. Austin Barnard created a time-lapse of the whole process. On the bottom we can see the liquid methane tank, and being stacked on top was the liquid oxygen tank. If you want to feel like a Boca Chica worker, Cosmic Perspective created something special for you, a video with binaural sounds of BN1 stacking. I recommend checking this video out because it's really amazing. Of course, as of now, the Tankzilla was replaced by the special crane dedicated to Starship stacking, which should speed up the prototyping process. We don't know yet when will BN1 get tortured by Dwetry's rehearsals and static fires, but we do know that it definitely won't fly, as stated by Elon Musk in one of his tweets. Speaking of Elon Musk's tweets, turns out that the Tankzilla isn't powerful enough to stack Starship on top of Super Heavy, which unfortunately means that the launch tower and orbital launch pad needs to be built before we see a full stack. I'm wondering whether SpaceX will be able to meet the deadline of July the 1st for the maiden orbital flight. Now let's check out the work done on the previously mentioned orbital launch mount. The progress is staggeringly fast. If this pace will continue, we'll see the full launch tower in no time. The tower foundations were expanded and now began the process of building horizontal support for the special crane that will be used for stacking Starship on top of the Super Heavy. The OLP pillars now have marks on them that shows where they are needed to be cut to fit the orbital launch table on top of them. Mauricio from RGV Real Photography took a stunning panorama of the OLP. Other than that, there is another Starship Prototype. Oh wait, it's a LOX tank for the ground service equipment farm. As we know, starships are pretty good when it comes to holding lots of liquid methane and liquid oxygen, and that's why SpaceX decided to use existing rings to create special tanks instead of spending money for commercially available options. Before we continue, I want to ask you guys to subscribe to my channel. Your support allows me to create weekly Starship updates for you, and if you are here, then also don't forget to drop a like and leave a nice comment. Back to the video. All eyes in Boca Chica were focused on the BN1 prototype, but we can't forget about the other prototypes. We have an interesting mystery regarding SN15. One of the nose cones considered as the one for SN15 might be something a little bit different. But let's start from the beginning. The nose cone that you see right now on screen was supposed to go on top of the prototype with serial number 15. There was only one problem: no header tank installed on top of the construction. We were wondering that maybe there is a new design of the LOX header tank and it will be installed later, but now it looks like there is a new nose cone dedicated to SN15 with a header tank and flaps already installed. Okay, but what about the previous nose cone? Will it be scrapped? Well, no. Right now it looks like SpaceX is building a new Lunar mockup. The header tankless nose cone received another ring section. As we know, the Lunar Starship will not return to Earth, which means that it doesn't need things like flaps or header tanks. Instead, on the top they could install a gateway station adapter that would allow for docking and human transfer from the vehicle. Of course, there already exists one Lunar mockup nose cone in Boca Chica, but in the last few months nothing really happened regarding this dummy, which leads me to believe that this nose cone will become a way more advanced mockup dedicated to showing NASA that SpaceX indeed could use Starship as a lunar lander. We should know what's next really soon. Recently, Elon tweeted that the development of vacuum Raptor engines is going really well, but there is still a really long way ahead of them to get the missing 20 seconds of specific impulse to get to the planned 380 seconds. From the less significant news, we had a fire near the high bay. Fortunately, firefighters came really soon and saved the day. Also, it looks like there is coming something huge from the collaboration of Neopork, Corey and Alex Swan. As of now, we were shown only a few renders, but it already looks incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to see what they will come up with. To end up the Starship section, let's look at the weekly infographics created by Brendan from Twitter. As we can see, this week only BN1 was stacked. Of course, this infographic doesn't include the progress of stacking ground service equipment tanks. Man does not live by starships alone. There is a lot of news regarding space this week, but let's start on the ground. Hopefully we won't stay here for too long. With the second Hot Fire of Sls. This test target was to fire up all 4 RS-25 engines that remember the times of the Space Shuttle program for at least 4 and in the best case 8 minutes. As a quick reminder, the last Hot Fire test was aborted, caused by overload in one of thrust vector control system power supplies. This time everything went flawlessly and the engineers gathered terabytes and terabytes of data to analyze. If everything looks fine, we should see the first launch of Artemis 1 mission by the end of this year. NASA has chosen the date and path of Ingenuity maiden flight. It will be the first time ever a propeller equipped vehicle will rise into the air on another planet. After testing all onboard equipment, the aircraft will spin its blades as fast as 2537 rotations per minute, and it should rise with a max speed of 1 meter per second. That's all I've had for you today. If you've liked this video, then don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.